the instant torque, number one. You just can't beat it. It's just like the car, you're in control. I feel like I'm driving like an M3, like BMW M3. It just zooms, which again, it all comes back to time. Like I'm probably your most like maniacal person with time, but like you don't want to be in a car and it's like, come on, like this thing doesn't move. And like you're trying to like go in a different lane. Like this thing just goes. I don't know if people talk about this, but I think one of the biggest value props of FSD, ready for this?
Car dealership guy, aka Yossi. I made a post on X a few weeks ago where I was like, hey, if this post gets 10,000 likes, Mr. Car dealership guy over here is going to buy a Tesla. And then the entire world has been waiting. What happened? What happened here? What happened, Yossi?
I don't know if the entire world's been waiting. I've been in auto retail for over 13 years. I came from a traditional dealership background. And in 2018, I actually built out a company called Get a Car, which was a venture-backed online auto retailer. So I really pivoted from traditional dealership to like, progressive online retailer, raised over $50 million of venture capital and built that to just close to $90 million a year in sales. We were like a vertically integrated retailer, right? So we actually bought the cars, transported them, reconditioned them. We were just an online marketplace. About 2 years ago, I launched Car Dealership Guy, and it was as a way to just kind of share my thoughts and insights into the industry for fun. It ended up morphing into what is today the fastest growing automotive media company in the market. And we really, the mission of the brand is to, demystify the car industry. And one of the things that I've wanted to do for a while, and it's kind of funny that I haven't done it, but was really, quote unquote mystery shop the Tesla buying experience, right? I built an online retailer. I spent lots of money and time building out an online retailing experience. And I spent a lot of time mystery shopping, CarMax, Carvana, but I actually never really, other than like YouTube videos and stuff, I never personally went through the Tesla buying experience. And given the fact that I've been needing a car, right? I've been planning on, I said, hey, like I really want to see what all the hype's about. And so just to be clear, even if you didn't post that post about if this gets 10,000 likes, CDG is going to buy a Tesla, I would have done it anyways because I wanted to do it. I wanted to see what the experience was like. I've obviously driven Teslas just, from the dealership and whatnot, but I've never really lived with the vehicle like day to day and experienced what it's like. And so it was just a great excuse and opportunity for me to finally try it out. So anyways, that's kind of the table set, how we got to this point. And I'm happy to tell you more about what that experience was like.
So the clickbait crowd's going to come after us. How dare you clickbait us into that? My goodness, you're going to buy Tesla anyway. I've been getting so much heat for that lately. This is like fuel to the fire.
Well, to be clear, I didn't buy it, right? So you posted I would buy one, and maybe I would have, but I actually leased it. So.
All right, so tell me about it then. So you've leased it. I think the interesting thing here. So for people that are very familiar with the Tesla story and familiar with electric vehicles and how Tesla sort of is this different way of sort of driving the car shopping experience. I'm sure a lot of people are aware that are watching this that Tesla doesn't really have the traditional dealership network that they tap into. They do all their own sales, which is mostly just online. And so walk me through what you've learned, how that experience sort of compares to the traditional auto buying experience. And then I'm sure this is going to turn into a pretty in-depth conversation because, one of the theses that I think Hans and I have is that this is a fundamental shift in how the future of car buying could be, but we would love to hear from somebody who's been in the industry for as long as you have, who really understands it just as well as anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'll break it down into several portions. I think first of all, for the listeners, right? Like what I strive to do is to bring an objective, unbiased voice to the car industry. I always speak on my podcast. It's called the Car Dealership Guy Podcast, and I'd say like I don't really have feelings towards EV versus ICE. I'm very unemotional about the topic. I'm more concerned about what's the latest, right? What's the most important? What's the hottest? Where are things going? That's where I put my focus in. And that's why my audience, gravitates to the content, because it's as quote unquote like unbiased as you can, or at least we strive to be within the car industry. And we're not perfect by any means, but we try. So anyways, with that said, I wrote down some, quote unquote positives, negatives about the experience, my overall opinion on the vehicle. So I'll take you kind of step by step through the experience. So first of all, let's start with the buying experience. Um, the the initial buying experience was from a user interface, user experience, and like I said, I've interacted with lots of these different applications. It was very good. Like there's just no other way to put it. I don't need to like blabber too much. It was very simple, right? The information was presented to me pretty quickly. Communication was done asynchronously via text, via the app. I just found out to really save me time. I have 3 kids under 4. We just spoke about this. I'm running car dealership guy full time. We're a team of 11 today and growing. It's a lot of stuff happening, and I don't have a lot of time. And so I said, hey, let's see, what they really need from me to do this kind of transaction. And I have to really give that a high rating, that the actual initial purchasing experience prior to going to the dealership or to the fulfillment center or whatever you call it, it was great. I really enjoyed it. I think where I would a couple things that struck out at me that could be improved for sure are the payment kept changing, right? So I have good credit. My income is strong and whatnot. So, I'm a very easily approvable customer. And like I said, I decided to lease. I did not buy, just, given all the volatility in EV prices, obviously I was going to lease, eat my own dog food, as they say. I've been recommending leasing for that reason. Just why should a consumer, take on that residual risk? But the payment kept changing, and that bothered me. And it wasn't changing because of my necessary like credentials or anything. It was changing from what I believe is similar to the dealership, where the initial payment you see online they haven't actually ran your credit yet and stuff like that. So it's these estimates and they change. And so I feel like that is something that Tesla should be able to solve higher up in the funnel. I don't know how much of an issue it is for other people. It just bothers me because it just sets wrong expectations. And again, that's not any different than most dealerships out there. So that specifically, I was a little surprised to see at the fluctuation in payment as they got more information on me. So something to note there. All right, number 2. So I said overall buying experience was great. A little frustrated with payment changing, could be improved. I think the CarMaxes and Carvanas of the world do a great job at this, in that they are a bank and a auto retailer in one. And so I also noticed with Tesla that they weren't the lender. They work with third party lenders, so you could make better integrations there. But when you do have that vertical integration, you can just provide a better experience. That's something that I strive to do also at my prior company, where we were looking to acquire a lender, not for the economics of that acquisition, but rather for the customer experience, because we knew how superior and how important the lending piece is of the car buying experience. All right. Any questions on that before I go on to point number 2?
No, it's perfect. I think another layer too. Actually, I do want to mention something. There was something that on the website Tesla has savings with the tax credit and fuel savings as well, and then they have like a purchase price. How was that? Were you able to clearly delineate between the two? Was that confusing?
No, I didn't really mind it because I'm not, I built these things, so like I get it. I can see how an average consumer might be like annoyed by it. It feels that I know you're talking about, where like it shows you like estimated with gas savings and all that. I mean, look, it's a little dealershipy. I get that it also converts better. It absolutely converts better. Else they wouldn't be doing it. I'm surprised that they are doing it, if I'm being honest with you. But again, I didn't mind it that much. It's not like, okay, so you have to like uncheck a thing. And like, I get it. Like as a marketer, you want to show the lowest attainable price. Now, I don't qualify for the tax credit just from like an income perspective. So like it didn't, again, that payment was like way off what I ended up paying. Right. So for what it's worth, but that's not the initial reason payment change. Yeah. All right. So let's go on to point number 2. All right. So that was the buying experience. Overall, I still very strong buying experience. I had, I switched names on the vehicle throughout. Tesla quickly updated it. I didn't have to talk to anyone. It really was, and the mousetrap is pretty good. Always room for improvement, but overall, the mousetrap is pretty strong. It's important to note that, like, when I view this, like, I don't view just a buying experience like on a, it's not a single dimension, right? Like, there's the buying experience, there's the in-store experience, there's the post-sale experience. There's the servicing experience, the ownership experience. Again, having built a retailer, all of these things were really important to me, right? I said, okay, what happens after they buy the car, during the purchase, when they receive the car, when they own the car? I actually had a big thesis into like ownership. I said, hey, how can we make the ownership experience so unbelievable that people always want to come back to buy from us, and we extend that lifetime value of the customer? So we'll get to that. All right. So I went to go pick up the car. I actually, this is going to sound pretty naive, but I didn't know that Tesla doesn't deliver vehicles to your home. Do they not do that at all for new cars? No?
I think they used to for very specific use cases, and if you're very close to the factory, and the factory is just in like a handful of locations. So, and I know they used to do it more back in the day with like the S and X, but the 3 and the Y, I don't think, and even the Cybertruck, I think you have to go to either the factory or a service center or store location to pick up your car.
Got it. So for me, that was inconvenient. I had to drive an hour. That was the closest. That was the closest fulfillment center next to me. Now there was a service center much closer to me, like 10 minutes away, but that service center is not equipped for dealership sales. I also know how the licensing works with these things like regulation. So I want to believe this is just growth pains, and as they have more spokes, that this will iron out. It would, I've also ran my own home delivery of vehicles at scale. So I also get how logistically that's a tough competency to scale. It just complicates things. Not the end of the world, but again, still inconvenient to drive an hour to pick up the car, but I did that fine. All right. So in-store experience took about, it was like 45 minutes or so, or maybe even a little bit more, like to an hour from start to finish. I think overall, first of all, like the initial person that I worked with was great. He was just kind. They really did make it pretty simple. There was some waiting, and I don't know if it was just like new employees at the store. There's just like some waiting around. I think the thing that irked me the most in store was that I actually wasn't greeted. So I was walking around looking for help. And, again, I pay attention to all these small details because I literally ran, I went through this, right? I know what it's like. So it just got me thinking. I said, like, why is this happening right now? And, I don't know if it's like a values thing, or like, with a traditional dealership, you typically have, it might be family owned. You might have like the entrepreneur on premises, like, really like it's the baby. So they greet you. That just bothered me that I kind of had to like figure my way around, and I wasn't greeted. Now I that could be different elsewhere. Like I had to, I kind of was lost a little bit. Like, hey, do I go here? Do I go here? What do I do? So, anyways, that was a thing in the beginning. I ended up figuring my way around. Not the end of the world, but something that could be easily solved, right? Like I interviewed the president of the largest Toyota dealership in the world, Longo Toyota in California, and he said that they have this thing called like the 6-foot rule, which is like if a customer is within 6 feet of you, you have to ask them like, have you been helped? How can I help you? I just, it's like simple stuff like that whoever runs Tesla's in-store experience could implement in theory and, make that greeting just a lot better. So anyways, that was that. I kind of had to find my way around. I ended up figuring it out. I'm moving on to the next thing. So I for me, like I summed that up as like, is it like just like it's missing that entrepreneur on site? I don't know. Either way.
The way I think about that one, what's interesting is just somebody that has worked at the company. This is like a perfect example of like a company that is run by engineers. It's a company that's run by engineers, which means that some of the like nip and tuck, like the last 20%, the tail that really
the emotional
has the polish. Yeah. Exactly. Like really like, and again, this could have been the specific location because I have experienced that before, but with service centers, not so much the buying experience, but it's like sometimes you walk in, you're like, okay, I don't know where to go. And it's like one of those things that as you interface with the company, you kind of get used to that. But for a new person, it is very different versus a traditional auto dealership because of exactly the point that you made. The auto dealership network has been around for 100+ years, it feels like. And so these are like the little things they've honed in over time. Whereas Tesla is, I think their focus is not there as much as probably it should be, especially as they likely start shipping their most affordable model yet starting next year, which is going to bring a huge number of people that are very much expecting what you just outlined, I would think.
Yeah. By the way, like I don't care about the act of being greeted. What I care about is knowing what the hell I need to do. Like I don't have time to waste. Just, point me in the direction and get me in like the queue. That's what I care about. Like I care about my
For sure.
time. Right. So that was what, like I had to go to one guy, then I had to go to another guy. He's like, go there. Then he's like, yeah, right there around the corner. Then I went around the corner and like, he didn't like even acknowledge me. And like, he's talking to someone, but he's like, see him. So I was like, can someone help me? Like, he's like, oh yeah. And then he calls that guy from the back. So little nuances like that, if I was like Tesla's like in-store guy, I would say, hey, love this 6-foot rule. Like everyone implement it right now. Like every retail business should have the 6-foot rule. It's just like, it's a no-brainer. I don't care what you sell. You can sell clothes. It just like makes sense.
Makes sense.
Just see if someone needs help. If they don't need help, like back off. But anyways, so that was more of a time thing. So no big deal. Figure that out. So the attendant, once he was working with me, the customer advocate or whatever their titles are, super nice, super kind. He kind of like took me through the paper. I know all this paperwork, so it was a breeze. Like, he showed me, he's like, hey, just sign here. I explain it, like no biggie. I didn't really understand the whole charging stuff. So I actually ended up buying a charger. And I think there's like a little educational piece they can help for like first time buyers. So like I bought a charger on site. I'm like, oh great, I can go charge this at home right now. He's like, no. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it's a wall charger. You got to get installed. I'm like, but I have the plug on my wall. He's like, oh, no. You have to get it like installed. I was like, wait, so I get home right now and I can't charge my car? He's like, no. He's like, you got to buy a mobile charger. So then I had to go back and I had to get a mobile charger, right? So that was just a little like customer education piece that I actually I didn't even understand. Then I understood that like the wall charger is not one that you can just plug in. Like I have a 240 volt, socket or in my garage, but I didn't realize that you still like need to run an additional.
Not necessarily. And that's where they didn't do a good job. So that 240 volt plug is more than enough to charge your EV at home. Doesn't matter if it's a Tesla or not. So that it's the same one as a dryer plug, right? The 240?
Correct. By the way, that's how I charge the Tesla, but I can't install the wall charger to that without actually bringing an electrician or an installer.
Yeah.
And that's just, so I'll tell you what, like on the website, when I was checking out, that is confusing as a first time buyer. It says like wall charger, mobile charger. So when I hear wall charger, I think like an iPhone, like wall charger. They should rename that to like, wall charger, like must be installed by an electrician, and like mobile charger, you can plug it the fuck in yourself. It just, again, little consumer education stuff, but literally such a small nuance that is, would elevate the experience for first-time buyers that don't understand.
Yeah, and that's such a great point. Like, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that think they need a supercharger at their house. Do you know the superchargers, like the fast charging locations that are en route to like, a road trip or whatever? There's a misconception that you need one of those in your house. And then there's like articles saying each of them costs $10,000. And so now people are like, oh, if I want to charge at my house, I need to spend $10,000. But in reality, you just need that dryer plug. So I think this is such good feedback. This is such good feedback for Tesla and really any other EV company,
I'm telling you, so like I would consider myself to have high attention to detail. And I spent so many years and millions of dollars like developing these experiences. And I would like to think that if you look at our reviews till today of, get a car and our net promoter score, like we really had a great experience, right? We couldn't compete in the market at the end of the day, economically. Like, Carvana had way deeper coffers than us. They were out marketing us. They had more inventory. Like there was other reasons why we couldn't compete, but our experience was really, really good. We had faster deliveries than them, blah, blah, blah. So I'm very like, attentive to these things. And I noticed the little nuances. So everything I mentioned to you right now thus far, like it's things that can be fixed. It's not like hardware issues and stuff or like that are more complicated. So that's that. All right, so let's move forward to the actual vehicle. So I finished the paperwork. I'm in Pennsylvania. Something that I was actually blown away by in the negative was that the car was not inspected. Meaning, like in Pennsylvania, you have to get this, inspection and emission. If you have a car has emissions, this Teslas don't. But the car wasn't inspected, so I actually had to, on my own dime, but more importantly, on my own time, had to schedule an inspection at a third-party shop, which is just I don't like every dealership you buy a car, like the vehicle comes inspected. Again, why does Tesla do this? Well, again, having run a retailer that delivered cars in, 10, 20 plus states, they do it because logistically, it's a lot easier. It's really difficult to, when you're moving around cars, like you're going to get them inspected, and it just complicates things. I do think that they could easily solve this though by just putting an inspection station on site. What I was doing when I retailed cars to all 50 states at some points is we would just inspect every single car for PA. And if you happen to buy outside of PA, then that was just a sunk cost of, I don't know, like 35, $40 of hours of cost that just went to the trash. It was cost of doing business, but it was worth it for keeping the customer happy. Now, we were able to do that because we had such a high concentration of buyers within Pennsylvania at the time. So it was a calculated, investment. I don't know what's Tesla's concentration of buyers, maybe, but needless to say, they need to fix that. There's a reason why you buy from Tesla, or I'd like to think, right? You do it because it's convenient, and you want to save time, right? Then making me go to inspect my own car, that's a no-no. Like that actually pissed me off. And I remember like talking to my dad again. He was in the business for years, and he was just shocked by that. Again, small but important thing, which could be easily fixed, and it's just a cost. And by the way, I would have paid extra to not have to go do it myself because I don't have time. Guess what? For me to have to go get a car inspected, either I have to get an assistant to go do it for me, which costs me money, or I have to get a babysitter to watch the kids, which costs me money. Any route costs me money. So save me the time and give me a car that's already inspected so I don't have to go do it myself. All right. The guy was super nice when he kind of showed me in the car. He explained it to me. He was like, here's what you got to do. Like it came charged. It was just he was just really kind. He showed me like the back, the front. Again, it's very different. I've driven Tesla, but I never really tinkered with it. It was never like my car. So I never even opened like the frunk. I never did these things. So you have to get used to it. Some things I'll say which really impressed me. Tesla's software, I was initially very disappointed that I couldn't use Apple CarPlay. That bothered me. But I've come around to it. Tesla has really phenomenal software. I think if I had to one thing to critique about the software, specifically on the dash, it's that I think the GPS, I don't think the GPS is great. Waze consistently finds me faster routes with less traffic. Tesla's map navigation does not. So I have to, whenever I drive longer distances, I have to still use my phone with Waze and the Tesla map because I want to see where they both send me. And it's always different. They literally, if they could just license some traffic technology, they could solve this. But that consistently bothers me. But put that aside for a second. The other parts of the software are phenomenal experience. The touchscreen is super receptive. It's not like those Android screens where you touch it, there's a delay. Everything is pretty much within reach. It's the only software other than CarPlay, in vehicle software that I've seen, and I've tried them all: Mercedes, BMW, Porsche, Audi, Toyota. Toyota's use CarPlay, but I've tried them all. BMW uses CarPlay too, but it's the only software that I've seen that is not CarPlay that is actually usable and actually enjoyable. So I think their software team has done a phenomenal job. I guess it's software and hardware, but they've been able to do a good job of that.
Yeah, that's one of the common positives that I hear about that specific brand, and it's interesting because it's hard to convey that until you actually experience it. It's hard to convey just how awesome it is to have a responsive touchscreen in a car versus every other touchscreen. Because when you think touchscreen in a car, you think, oh, it sometimes doesn't register me wanting volume up or temperature up or this menu or whatever. And so, yeah, it's interesting hearing you say that as somebody, again, that's very good at being just saying it how it is, that gap that exists. And it's what's fascinating to me is that they still haven't, the other automakers haven't caught up. This isn't they just came out with this software piece in 2024. This has been the case since 2012, right? So it's curious. It's interesting to see how everybody else is lagging behind, but it might be because they're They just want to go to CarPlay or Android Auto, and they're just banking on that being the interface, so that they're like, we don't really care. Just let them take care of it. We don't want to, we don't want to deal with it. It's not part of our expertise. So like, there's no reason for us to do it.
Yeah. So look, Elon is notorious for like cutting things out that aren't needed, right? And so I think two things right here that I'm doing to like patch are, number one is I'm putting Waze on my phone for like 30 plus minute drives. I have to do it every time. There's no choice because I live in an area where there's like crazy traffic in certain roads and whatnot. So that's one. Shorter trips, I just put the Tesla navigation. It's phenomenal. Number two, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't think I am, but the garage thing, do I have to subscribe to open my garage, or is that only if I want it to auto open?
Yeah, neither. If you want to use the MyQ, whatever their premium services that they have, you do have to subscribe, but that like gives you way more functionality. I've got mine set up to where I go in and out of my garage. It opens and closes. Well, I guess it doesn't open automatically, but it does close. Like it opens when I get home automatically and it closes when I leave automatically. But if I'm inside and I turn on the vehicle, I do have to do one of either, hit the button on my way to the car or hit it on the screen to open on the way out.
If I understood that I have to subscribe to open my garage, I was like, absolutely not. I put one of those old school things. I have it right now on my Tesla, which is just like annoying. So if I can do that without subscribing, great. Which is like, again, that's not even like a table stakes. That's like beyond table stakes. But good to know. But here's the other thing, by the way. So the whole like automatic open close thing is like absolutely not with kids. Like I can just imagine like my kids either in the garage when I'm arriving. Like, so as a parent, again, if anyone from Tesla is listening to this or cares, but as a parent, again, I definitely would not use that. It was just like, would be a disaster if like, God forbid, like my daughter's in there and it auto opens or auto closes. I don't want that. So I'm definitely not using the auto open close. Yeah,
she's gonna
I'm
run
definitely
away.
not using that. Well, I go to the garage, the kids run after me, right? And I'm sure many parents listening to this are like, yeah. So it's just dangerous for parents with kids. But again, you can use it if you want to, and you don't have to. So cool feature nonetheless. So we spoke about the garage thing. We spoke about the ways. Here's the one other thing. I was surprised that there isn't like anything to cover the roof. Like, dude, I'm baking in the sun some days. There's no like even like a claw, like there's like nothing that like maybe like dim the roof. I don't know. That's just something I was surprised that that's not like a thing with Tesla. That no one maybe voice it to them, but some days I get into that car, the sun is beaming on me and like I don't have like a sunroof I can close or like dim the roof so it's dark. So has that not bothered you ever?
Not for me. I mean, I it might be like a bias thing where I just like warmer climate stuff. Like it doesn't really bother me. I mean, if we do get like say 105-degree weather in Texas, it takes a little while longer to cool down the car for sure. 1,000%. And it's something that I've heard a lot of people complain about, that's what they don't like about glass roofs. Cause it's depending on what model you have, it's an all glass roof. I know the Model Y, which is what you have, I believe, it's an all glass roof. So it is tinted, but after some point, you will still feel, I'm sure, a little bit of heat above your head. I think third-party companies have like a shade you can put, but that's a manual thing. It doesn't come standard with the car. So it's another piece of good feedback for them.
Yeah, and I would, if I was Tesla, I would view this like from like a financial perspective. Just imagine how much, like if you take 1 million cars right now, or like whatever, 100,000 cars, and they all have better insulation from the sun, like UV insulation, then just imagine how much easier it would take for the car to cool down and like how much that would extend your battery and potentially improve performance. I don't know. I'm just trying to think like it's not just like a cost necessarily. Not only does it improve experience, but it would probably like my car is not, fighting really hard to cool down in like, really warm weather and stuff like that. So it could be like an interesting cost benefit analysis for them internally. All right. So, all right, let's talk FSD. Right.
Ooh,
so FSD,
you got FSD?
I don't subscribe to it, but I want to give you. So first of all, phenomenal technology. If anyone says otherwise, like they're just lying or they have like Elon derangement syndrome. It's just good technology. Like you can't argue. I've used all the adaptive cruise controls and blah blah blah. It's very unique. It's very adaptable and customizable, like aggressive driving, comfortable driving. It's just great. I was really impressed. I actually drove to New York, like the second or third day of having the Tesla. I drove to New York, and I used FSD a majority of the time. I even used it in the city, and there was like people running across the street. I was like, let's just see what happens. Like, worst come to worst, I hit someone. No, I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, like I let it. I just wanted to see, like, I had my foot close to the brake, but I said, like, let's just see what happens. And it performed really well in Manhattan. Other than that, I don't know if people talk about this, but I think one of the biggest value props of FSD, ready for this? I maybe this is novel. When you're on a highway and there's like 6 lanes and you have no idea where to go, dude, like I'm sitting there like, double click, the car just knows where to go. So that to me, like I felt after I drove back from New York to my home, I felt like I had so much more mental energy. I think this is like an under discussed or under attributed like value prop of FSD, which is that it's like, it gives you so much more like, or it saves your mental energy that you don't have to think as much on the road. And that's a real thing. Like you drive from like, 2-hour drive, like you're exhausted, all of this. So FSD really like lightens the load on your brain. It sounds like weird, but it's true. And I experienced it firsthand.
It's so hard to convey this unless you truly are behind the steering wheel and pedal, and paying attention to the system. A lot of people, I think when they think of like self-driving technology, specifically from Tesla, they might watch a video from like years ago of this one-off situation where this bad thing happened, or the mainstream media publications that relish in driving negative stories about anything, not just Tesla, right? But I think that the fact of the matter is the large majority of experiences with that specific technology are very, very positive, and I cannot tell you how huge how much I resonate with that statement, because that's exactly when my mind was blown. So I used to live in PA. So I lived in Bethlehem for like 20 years. And so New York to Bethlehem was, Route 78 East and West, you go, and then you get into the, either you take the Lincoln Tunnel or you take the other one, the stupid one over by whichever it is. There's a bunch of different ways to get in. But it's like exactly what you said is like these like cross exits. You got through a toll. Oh, I'm supposed to be on the rightmost lane. I got to go all the way to the leftmost. It's so confusing. It doesn't matter if they have signs there. That was the initial value prop for me that was mind blowing. Now, I think the one that I'm very curious to hear your take on, if you still subscribe for FSD in the future. I want to ask you like why you don't subscribe, but when it's hands free, because I have that version right now where it's completely hands free, and all I have to do is just pay attention to the road. I just look forward, and I don't even have to touch the steering wheel. If you ever are up for it, once that's available, I would love to hear your thoughts on that, because that's yet another level that it takes it's like even crazier, because now you don't even have to like baby the vehicle. You just look forward and it just does its thing.
Yeah. So I'm not subscribed to it, and I'll tell you why. The technology is really strong. It's not enough for me yet, in the sense that for as long as I still have to be somewhat attentive to the vehicle, and I can't be fully like hands off or hands free, or like doing like, as long as it's not 100% and I still need to pay some attention, it's not worth it for me. Like I can't really be using that time to do something else. So it's like, I still have to have my hands on the wheel, and I still have to be focused on the road, nudge me, do that. And then like maybe it makes them, or it doesn't know where to go, or it kind of like freaks out once in a while. Like, I feel like it's the most impressive technology I've seen with self-driving by far on anything, but it's not enough to replace that. Like I will pay more than $99 a month, more than that, if it can truly give me my time back, because I value my time very, very highly. So for me, like $99, it's like, it's either I don't pay anything, or I'll pay you $299 a month or $399. Like, you get what I'm trying to say? Like, I think that's how I view it. It's kind of like all or nothing. And as long as I still have to have my hands on the wheel, I still can't like be on my phone working or do something else. It just, it was a nice novelty thing, but I'm not ready to spend that money because I know I'm still going to be doing the driving anyways. So that's my personal take on it. Now, other people might say, "Hey, I have a very easy route to work every day, or my commute, or whatever." Or maybe I'm stuck in traffic every day for 1 hour, and maybe for them it's like even that like 20 minutes where I can just zone out, like that's worth it for me. Fine. I'm not that guy. I don't commute to work, right? I do like I have random trips places. I don't know what route I'm going to take. It's not predictable. I'm not, you know what I mean? So like for me, it's like all or nothing. And, my personal opinion, I think it's a phenomenal technology. I wouldn't bet against it, but as a consumer, I'm just not ready to pay for that because it's not enough for me personally yet.
And that's a sentiment that I hear a lot with the current version too. And actually my dad, I had him with me when I did the FSD with the latest version. And I asked him, even if you don't pay attention, would you get it? He's like, no, because I like to drive. So there's still like a subset of people that just don't want to do anything with the technology. But I really think as it pertains to like self-driving, for it to be self-driving, truly self-driving, it means really not paying attention. And to your point, that value prop just explodes at that point. Because like you said, it's time. It's not like time comes back to you. You can work, you can talk to people without paying attention. You can, sleep, you can do whatever you want in that car. And where I think Tesla is uniquely positioned in this case, and we'll see if they can execute against this, because this is like the big question. The existing fleet might be able to get an overnight update that allows that. So like your Model Y, Hans's Model 3 from 2018, my Model Y from 2021, once they finish the software, say sometime next year, they upload the thing, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, unsupervised FSD. Like you said, maybe now you pay $3.99 a month or $2.99 a month, but you can literally do whatever the fuck you want. I mean whatever the fuck you want, right? So it's like...
Remember, because now you're buying me back time. Yeah, now you're buying me back time. And now it's a different ballgame, right? Like right now, I'm buying a much less time. So I'll tell you like one example, right? Like hypothetically, if I could like start and stop FSD on like a fractional basis or like, micro transactions, I would use
per mile or something.
Like literally like, yeah, exactly. Right. Because like if I'm going to New York right now and I'm entering these like, 7-lane highways, like I'll pop it on and off and whatnot and use it per mile. But like, I think they're sleeping on that because people like me would absolutely use it per mile. It's no different than like, insurance by the mile or like, reading articles on news websites by the article. Like, I think that like, microtransaction world is the future. And I just think, I don't know if that would cannibalize like subscriptions, but the point is like, yes, if I could do it per mile, then I would use it a ton when I need to use it because right now, it's not fully solved. It's not solving the full. It's not delivering the full value prop yet. So Tesla could still earn money from me right now if they let me use it per mile and turn it off whenever I don't need it anymore. That's a big one. So that's room for increasing margin and growing revenue just through that. And I could bet you that many other people would use it on a really like fractional basis like that if they could.
The only thing that I was going to say there is I 100% agree that that's a huge opportunity that's on the table. And I kind of, I have expected that for a while. We have seen them, come down on the price from that $200 a month to $99 a month. And I think that once they have fully solved the safety piece, that they'll really move even more in this direction. That it's just not really high on their priority list because I think they view the monetization capability of FSD really kind of like you do as far as that, binary, it either works or it doesn't. And when it works, it's worth so much that offering the little a la carte menu of what you can buy or like how, do you pay for it by the mile or by the month or by the week or by the day, all those things are just, different pricing strategies that maybe they'll offer eventually, but they're just heads down on trying to, make that zero right now on does it work all the way, a one. And then once they get there, we'll see what the world looks like.
Think about it. When it does work all the way, who are you bringing the most value to? Think about this for a second, right? Whoever's time is most valuable, right? So like in theory, when it does work all the way, right? Like that target market is going to find it the most valuable. People that value their time the most are going to be willing to pay the most for this as well. I just think right now it's the only reason I'm not subscribed to it is because the amount of time and value I get out of it and use it is not enough to justify it. Like I said, it could be 99, it could be $9. I don't care about the absolute number. I'm a very simple person. It's like, is what I'm paying, right? Is that less than the value I'm getting? Whether it's $1 or $1 million. Super simple calculation. I'm a very simple consumer in that sense. So here's what I would tell you bottom line. Like I said, you have like if you say it's not a phenomenal technology, or if you just like you're just intellectually dishonest. I just don't buy it because it is really, really incredible, and it feels like magic. It just does. Good technology feels like magic. It feels like magic. The practical use case or the practicality of the use case is growing. And like you said, as you can not have your hand on the wheel and stuff like that, I think it's just going to grow even more. But I think there's going to be like a very big tipping point when like you can really like not put your hand on the wheel and not pay attention, where it's going to go like, hockey stick, because it's like in this type of stuff, like the value is unlocked in the last 2%, right? It's like 99% of the technology is not enough. It's like you need that last 2% to really hockey stick it for adoption, in my opinion.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And that's what they're working so hard at. And we'll see if they're able to do that, with their all vision system, because everybody else is using LiDAR and radar, and they're very novel with, cameras, inference computer on board, which is a fancy word for an AI computer, and then an AI brain at the headquarters that basically is like Hans calls it meat space GPT. So you have chat GPT for words. They have meat space GPT, which is like a GPT for physics. So it's a very novel way of approaching it, but that's what could allow them to just do a software update, It's very cool stuff. So nerdy.
I mean, look, other little things as someone that's sold cars because of my whole life, the door handle gets some time to get used to. Like, you're just like, how do I open this thing? It's a little funky. I'm actually I would wonder like why they chose this design. I don't really mind it. Just like
aerodynamics,
kind of get used to it. So there we go. Well, aerodynamics, but why not like just lift it like a normal handle? Like why the whole why do I have to like put one finger here then go like that? Like I don't know. It's a little.
You gotta use your thumb, bro. You gotta use your thumb in and then grab it. If you need a instruction manual for a door handle, it's a problem.
But you see, like I've been driving this thing now. Like I was like, how do you like open this thing? So I didn't even think about that. What you just said. So like
it's unintuitive, but that proves your point.
Yeah, like I didn't know that. You just taught me something. All right, so that's you just solved something for me.
Yeah, that'll be $1.
But I'm gonna get very technical with you right now. Ready for this? I'm always carrying shit in my hands. Like I have a phone, and then maybe I have like a water bottle. So like I'm used to like opening the handle with like one finger. So now you're making me use my entire hand. I got to put a thumb. Listen, I'm just being honest, right? Like you could laugh 100%. At me for being like a prima donna, but like if I am a market research team, like this is the kind of shit I want to hear. It's like, oh wait, he's right. He's got to use 5 fingers instead of 1. So just take it into consideration for what it's worth.
Auto open would be the best. Just approach it with your phone and it just opens. That'd be sick.
Yeah. And that brings me to, well, let me preface this, right? I would absolutely buy another Tesla. Overall, it's been a great experience. And there's a couple more things I want to talk about. But I preface with that because the one thing that boggles my mind, and I want to pull my hair out, it's using the phone as the key. Not actually using the phone as the key, but like, dude, like 7 out of 10 times when I pull up to the car doesn't open. My Bluetooth is on. I'm next to the car. It does not freaking open. Like, really? What is going on? I have to pull out I pull out my phone, I put it doesn't open. I have to open the Tesla app, like press unlock. That is the most annoying freaking thing. It's so freaking glitchy. That is the one thing where I'm like, I'm shocked. Now you can tell me, like, is this everyone or is this just me?
This sounds rare. So what kind of phone do you have? Let's troubleshoot it.
Dude, iPhone 13 Pro Max.
And do you have it so that the Tesla, like the apps go to sleep when it's sleeping? Do you have it like always on?
Idea.
Okay.
I was at the Tesla store when I bought the car. I downloaded the app. I made my username thing, and that's it. Like I'm a normal consumer. I don't have time to tinker. I haven't even tinkered with a Tesla. Like I don't have time for that. But dude, it never opens. And you might be right, by the way. That might be the solution. So definitely like show me that. But if I'm having this issue, there have to be other people having this issue. And I'm pretty like I understand like technical stuff, dude. It doesn't open like 7 out of 10 times. That boggles my
I think
mind.
that's what it is. Yeah, I think for me, it works 99.9% of the time. It is super reliable in any condition. And I really think what it is, it's but proves your point, is like what are the use cases? Are we sure they're, like ensure that people understand this when they open the app? Like if you click unlock 3 times, it's like, hey, did you know that you can actually fix this by doing this or whatever? So it's the always on in the background. There is a way to go into your settings, you click on the app, and then you say always allow to run in the background. And if you do that, that should allow the Bluetooth to always make a call to the app as you approach the car. And that should fix your issue. Yeah.
I'll try that out. And by the way, if that fixes it, amazing, because that is the most annoying thing about owning this car. It's that every time I walk into the car, my hands are full. I have a crying baby behind me and it doesn't open. And now I got to pull out the car, find the app, search Tesla. Like it's just like you got to schlep all that. So, but I'll try that out. Hopefully it fixes the issue. My biggest question mark is still post-sale service, right? Like if God forbid, like a tire pop, like whatever, like I need some service for any reason. I don't know. Like, what is that like? I've heard good and bad things. So it feels like it's a pretty spotty experience depending on where you're in the country, their demand at the time, how busy they are and whatnot. So, that's still a question mark for me. Like when I actually have to deal with a service center, what is it going to be like? If I'll even use the Tesla service center, like it depends on what my needs are going to be. Again, I have, I know lots of local shops just because I haven't been in the industry. So I probably wouldn't use a Tesla service center unless I have to for certain reasons. But that's just a big question mark for me that I can't speak to because I haven't personally been to one. My stepbrother actually works as a technician at the local service center. And so that's pretty cool little connection for me there. If I do need someone for what it's worth. But overall, if I had to say like, I'm very pleased with the vehicle. I'm pleased with the experience. We do have 2 cars in the household. Well, technically we have 3 because I have my dad's car. He's kind of back and forth with Florida, so he keeps his car here too. So say we have a Toyota Sienna hybrid. I was also driving a Cadillac SRX, which is really primarily my dad's car. And then we have the Tesla. So we actually have like a normal internal combustion car. We have a hybrid and we have an EV. We're going to keep, like, if, I don't need the internal combustion, like we're going to keep the hybrid and the EV. Hybrid, again, as a family with kids, suburbs, long family trips and stuff. It's a big, well, number one, it's a bigger car. It's a minivan. So that's one thing. Number 2, I don't want to go to just all EVs. I'm not comfortable with that at this point yet. Just, for, electricity goes out. I mean, who knows what? I'm just not ready to go all EV. But check this out. I don't see myself going back from one EV, one hybrid. So that's something that I would not have said a couple months back. And the reason for that is because 2 big things that drive my purchasing, our ownership decisions. It's the fact that the instant torque, number one, you just can't beat it. It's just like the car, you're in control. I feel like I'm driving like an M3, like BMW M3. It just zooms, which again, it all comes back to time. Like I'm probably your most like maniacal person with time, but like you don't want to be in a car and it's like, come on, like this thing doesn't move, and like you're trying to like go in a different lane. Like this thing just goes. So like again, just it's quick, it's like fun. My wife is like, hey, can you go grab something from the supermarket? Like I have fun doing it. Right? I'm like, yeah, like I'll go. It's fun, a quick drive. So the instant torque is like a massive thing for me, which is why I'm going to keep one EV and one hybrid. The second thing is the fact that you can charge at home. That's just huge. Like if you have that privilege and you have a garage and you can install, and you don't have to stop at a gas station or an electric charging station somewhere, you just can't beat it. Again, saves you more time. So all these things combined, as you can tell, like I'm a very time conscious consumer, and I think that the EV wins in that segment. I don't have a gas station at my house, right? So I think that's great. And then obviously, like it's also Like I'll give you another great example. Like it has no emissions. So if I'm picking up my daughter from daycare, I get back home, she falls asleep in the car. I don't want to take her out yet, right? I can close my garage. The car's still running. The AC is on. It's just, like that's like little like conveniences, which is cool. Like I don't have to think like, oh my god, like garage is like it's like little stuff like that. But it's cool that like you could have a car running inside your home, which is like something that like I never, we're used to like, oh my god, car's on, garage has to be open. So pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's I have to commend you for really going through in detail the full experience of owning that specific brand at Tesla in this case, and being so like unbiased and just being very factual. Here are the pros, here are the cons, and all that stuff. My question to you is, so I guess it's a two-parter because I know we only have like 7 minutes, but I think this would be a good place to sort of end it. So how representative are you of the average consumer, right? And do you think that the success for EVs long term are legitimate, or do you still think it's a niche product?
So it's two big questions. First of all,
sorry,
how representative I am of the average consumer. So I think there are elements to my kind of consumer behavior that are representative of the average consumer, like suburban, family, garage, kids. Like I think that's very common. I think the value I put on my time is probably uncommon of the average consumer, just because like I said, you can see I care about minutes in my days and seconds, and the average consumer. Let's be realistic, right? The average American, or the average household making under 100 grand a year or so, they're not going to value their time maybe as highly as I will. I'm not saying they don't value their time. I'm just saying, like, to me, saving 10 minutes every single day, like that is, I could, an hour or whatever, like I could pay a decent amount for that, because there's other things I can be doing. And it's not necessarily making money. Like I might just really want to be with my kids because I only have 2.5 hours a day with them, and I want to be attentive at those 2.5 hours. So I think I'm definitely in the upper echelon with time value. And so take it for what it's worth with the time saving stuff that I mentioned. I think when it comes to the conveniences of like, hey, I'm going to have an EV and a hybrid in my household for the foreseeable future, I think that that's probably representative of the average consumer, especially the family that lives in the suburbs. Because once you experience it, I know I didn't even talk about gas savings because, I care more about going to the gas station. Like the dollars saved is nice, but the $50 I'll save a month, like I spend out on a babysitter in like one morning in like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So like the money to me is not that meaningful. It's more again of the time. But I know that to some people it is meaningful. And so you can't neglect that. Now, I don't know net if it's truly a savings, and maybe you know better than me. Like, I know I got to replace my tires more often on an EV because of the instant torque. So again, I don't know net. There's studies that can show you both sides of the equation. I have no idea. All I know is that I've had this car. I haven't needed to do any maintenance yet. I don't foresee needing to do any maintenance yet. I probably will need to do tires at some point in the future faster than I will with my wife's hybrid Sienna. But like, that's all I kind of know about it.
Yeah. The longer you drive obviously is going to give you a better cost benefit analysis on the gas savings, right? Because you're going to be on the road for longer. So my dad, for example, drives an hour and a half each way to work 5 days a week. He drives 150 miles a day. And when he switched to the Model 3, he's been saving a ton of money on gas. He goes through a little bit more tire, and the Model 3 has a bigger tire than his previous car, which was a Volkswagen Jetta diesel. So he pays a little bit more on the tire, but he saves a lot more on gas than he's paying on the tire. So it's just highly dependent on how much you drive.
So to answer your second question, right? You asked me about like the growth of EVs. So look, I think that I definitely think there's more, like significantly more room for adoption, in the sense that today we are at what market share as of recently was it 7%? I want to say
single digit,
8% roughly, single digits. Here's the reality, right? Like, I think that it's extremely, what's the word? I think it's extremely like easy to assume that or predict that every suburban household will have, on average, like one EV, one hybrid. You're going to have some households that are only hybrid. You're going to have some that are only EV. And I think ICE will just continue becoming more of a niche product in the long term. The transition will take time, clearly, because of, just the quantity of cars we're selling per year. The car park in the US is like 270 million plus vehicles, right? You're selling like right now, like 15.5 million new vehicles per year, right? You are replacing, or you're killing off, I think, like, I don't know, like, I forget the exact amount, like 12 or 13 million. Maybe I'm missing that number. The point is, like, the car park, I mix that up. Forget my numbers. The point I'm trying, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. The point I'm trying to make is it's going to take time to transition, but I do think that it's an extremely practical solution for a family. If you live in the burbs, right? If you're doing lots of these short trips, for all the reasons I listed before. So I think there's a way more room to run for adoption. But what I've realized is there's still very much a knowledge gap. Like, people are like, even my wife, like, she is more uncomfortable driving in a Tesla still because she hasn't done it, used it that many times. But it just, it just takes some time getting used to. Like, my uncle, I'll give you a quick story. My uncle went to Florida for a trip. He told me the story. They went to rent a car, and the guy at the Hertz rental place was like, "Hey, yeah, like, we only have EVs." And my uncle's like, "No, I don't want an EV." And his wife was like, "No, we don't want an EV, right?" And this was like a whole thing, like 30 minutes. And then he ended up taking the EV, whatever. And he was telling me the story. And he's like, Yossi, he's like, "I want to be honest with you." He's like, "I don't even know why I said I don't want an EV." He's like, "I don't even know why." And so, and he's not the only one. I think there's still very much just like a consumer education aspect to it. I don't know how you solve that. Like, I don't know, like, if it's different, it takes time for people to get used to things, right? I think in the long term, I think it's undoubtable that EVs will keep growing. Government subsidies or not, prices will drop, prices will rise. It's just another technology that will continue to grow in its adoption. I absolutely do not see in the next decade a world where, like, we're only selling EVs. I think that hybrids are still going to have a big piece of the market share just because of consumer demand. Like, you could say, "Oh, it's a better or worse technology. It's waste, right? It's wasteful. You have an engine, you have a battery." That's not the point. Like, you're being like, get your engineer hat off and put your human hat on. Humans are not rational with all their decision making, and emotions play into decision making, right? And your wife, who's driven that car for her whole life, plays into decision making. And so these are real things, and the average consumer makes decisions this way. And so, anyways, I think there's a lot of room to run. I think that smart dealers will capitalize on the growth of EVs with service, with pushing the automakers and legacy automakers to potentially put out better quality EVs, like, from a product selection perspective. I think it's undoubtable that Tesla is still superior within that market, right? It comes down to the product, but I think there is a long way to run. There's going to be bumps in the road. I think it sucks that it's gotten so politicized. Again, I don't care EV, ICE, hybrid. I'm a student of the business. I like the trends, and I'm a capitalist. I want to see, where is there going to be money to be made, right? How is the environment going to change? And I think that dealers will have an opportunity to capitalize on this trend. Certain things about them will change. They will become more fulfillment centers for the new car sales side. Used cars will still hum along. Service will thrive and grow. EVs need service. It's just different service. So I think that's still going to be a moneymaker, but I think things will significantly change. And I think if you're listening to this and you're very, like, I would just say, like, open your mind to how consumers really think, to how long change really takes to happen, and what the future could look like. And is there a way for you to capitalize on this? That's my take.
Dude, that's going to ring true to a lot of people. And I can tell you that, for the longest time, and I love that quote you made of like, take your engineering hat off and put your human hat on. I can personally tell you that from my perspective, as somebody who's studied the EV market very, very closely for a decade plus, I've had my engineering hat on for a really long time because the value proposition to me was such a no-brainer. But you're 100% right. It's like it comes down to comfort and being somebody who wants to take the leap, because it's still a risk. You're still taking a risk when you're, regardless of like what your mentality is, there has been this thing with electric vehicles that are new. Media runs stories on EVs, positive, negative, whatever, but we're all sort of subject to what we're exposed to. But more importantly, we don't like to take risks on average. Humans like to just kind of be like, okay, I know what I know what I like, don't disrupt me. I got it. I'm comfortable, right? And that's one thing that I've been waking up a lot to in the last year or so, sort of studying the market. So I really appreciate that breakdown. I know we're at time, and I want to just thank you so much for just giving us incredible info. If somebody from Tesla is listening to this specifically, y'all just got a bunch of great feedback, so you better freaking implement it. And if you're up for it in the future, I would love to have you back to really continue to talk about this trend, because I do think it's such an interesting thing. Not just from a technology perspective, but like dealership models, direct to sales, self-driving technology, how all this stuff is coming out and impacting the marketplace. I think is going to be fascinating to follow, and you are easily one of the best unbiased resources to really explain what's happening and give a very educated viewpoint. So thank you so much for making the time, brother. I really appreciate it.
Look, that's what I try to do. And look, we have grown, right? So we have reporters on our team. Everyone knows, like, my mandate is very clear. Like, our value to the market is in delivering things as objectively and unbiased as possible. And it's hard. I'll be honest with you. Like, even today we posted about like the growth and like charging stations and whatnot. And I think we spoke about chargers, not charging stations. And like that was actually just a mistake. But right away people are like, oh, you're like undermining this and that. I'm like, dude, no, we're just like, we made a little mistake and we fixed it. And if people right away jump to conclusions, it's really tough to be like unbiased in this space. And we actually have a second layer of approval for posting any news that's EV related on all of our social accounts, because like there's the posts that I do, which are just like my rogue posts, like I just some market related content, whatever. But then there's the posts that our editorial team does, right? From the same account, maybe they'll preface it with like news, right? I don't actually post that. And so, we really try hard to deliver that like straight down the middle type of content, because that is where we bring value. And that like, we don't, that is why the market pays attention to us, because they know that that's what we strive for. So, it's a pretty cool position to be in. And I appreciate you having me on. Of course, if anyone listening and, wants to check out my content, it's Car Dealership Guy on YouTube. I do lots of podcasts about these topics. I just had an EV charging expert on my podcast where he spoke about the grid and all these fancy things. But yeah, I would love to kind of, have more conversations on this, and appreciate you guys for hosting me.
Of course. And then on X, add Guy Dealership as well, I believe, if that's right.
Yep.
Yeah. See,
I
follow you, bro.
Car Dealership Guy. It was one character too long, so I couldn't get that one.
Dang, that's a bummer. All right. Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Take care.